welcome, friend. I am Merritt Ansa, your dream coach and host of the Devoted Dreamers podcast. And I believe God has an unfolding plan for your life, a God-shaped dream just for you. But there are mountains to climb between you and that dream, like fear, comparison, imposter syndrome. And what if I mess this up? Or maybe the next right step is just evading you, or you're constantly feeling overwhelmed or stuck. I promise you are not alone. And that's why I'm here, to bring you stories from sisters in Christ who have been there and have made it out on the other end. Stick around and you'll find a new episode every Wednesday morning and once a month a solo where I will coach you through the stages of following our God-shaped dreams and provide fuel for the fire that's already burning in your heart. If you're ready to find some real traction for your dream instead of sitting on the sidelines, subscribe to the show and then meet me back here every week for transformational tools to help you release the lies so you can freely show up in the world with your gifts, leaning on God in your weaknesses, and serving His kingdom with the dream He's given you. Hello, devoted dreamers, and welcome to episode number 210, another of my mini interviews for the summer of 2021. But before we get into that, I want to take a minute to acknowledge my patrons who have provided financial support for this podcast month after month after month. Like, they are showing some serious longevity. It means so much to me to see those contributions come in and provides a lot of relief to help me know that I have your support. I specifically want to recognize some of the ladies at my top tiers of giving, and they are Catherine Herndon, Haley Master-Leonardo, Cheryl McGrath, Sarah Sheely, and Jane Springer. Thank you, ladies, so much for your tremendous support over the months and years. I'm so grateful. And if you would like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/devoteddreamerspodcast. With summer soon coming to a close, this will be the last of my mini interviews, at least for now, with a previous guest. But I have loved reconnecting with my past guests and giving you a chance to hear from returning dreamers who are just continuing to persevere through the challenges of starting something new and then experiencing the ups and downs along the way. And again, continuing to push through even when it's challenging. And I think it's important to note that acting on a God-shaped dream is hardly ever a one and done thing. Like, I couldn't even come up with an example where that would be the case. There's rarely a finish line in the traditional sense of how we think about finish lines. Things shift and change over time. And that's definitely been the case for today's return guest, Megan Sjuts. Megan was a guest back in the fall of 2018, episode 95. That feels forever ago, but she and I talked about how you'll never be fully ready to begin your dream. And just to catch you up a little bit, in case you missed that one, Megan is a graphic and web designer. She's an online educator and creative coach. She's also an entrepreneur, a wife, and a mother to a little girl who you may hear in the background during our conversation. As a designer, Megan partners with ambitious business women to bring their vision to life through strategic design and creative direction. As a coach, she helps aspiring and emerging creatives struggling to gain momentum to build a flourishing and fulfilling online business. Megan's master mission is to bring out the creative best in others. In this episode, Megan talks about not feeling qualified to teach design when she was just out of school and how being challenged in that way helped her grow her own skills as a designer. So the takeaway that I have for you today is that God may be using something unexpected in your life to open your eyes to a passion you didn't know you had or a skill that you didn't know you'd be good at. And so I just want to encourage you to allow this to give you freedom to try scary things, to say yes to an opportunity that falls in your lap that you're like, where did that come from? Or to take a risk that feels out of your comfort zone and just see what God will do with it. Friends, I'm so glad you are here today. Be sure to rate and review the show if you like this one. Now let's get to the interview. Here is Megan Sjuts. Hey, devoted dreamers, welcome back to another, what I'm calling a mini episode for summer of 2021. I've got a guest here today with me, and we talked like almost 3 years ago. So this is going to be a real fun revisiting of a conversation, an update from Megan Sjuts. Megan, I don't even know if I said your name right.
You did. You actually got it right. I'm
Okay,
impressed.
then maybe my memory serves me a little bit these days still. But thanks so much for being here. I know you've just moved to a new home. You've got a young daughter there in the background. But I'm excited that we get to chat today and catch up and hear about what's been going on in your life since 2018. For those of you who maybe are fairly new to the podcast, I spoke with Megan for episode 95, and I titled it Because You'll Never Be Fully Ready to Start. So go back and listen to that one if you haven't heard it, or if you need a refresher. But Megan, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me again.
So, yeah, I'm glad we're getting a chance to get caught up because obviously life takes a lot of turns, and it sounds like God has given you lots of new things. So, how about this? Let's
Yeah.
start with you kind of giving just a little bit of a background of you and your business, and then
Mhm.
kind of what's new since 2018.
I think so. We talked in 2018. I had just finished my master's degree. I just finished school and was really just at the beginning of starting to teach some college graphic design courses. And I was really just working full time after grad school in my freelance business since I had a little bit more capacity and margin after being done with school. And I think I had just kind of relaunched my business too. And we talked under my new name, Building Seven, because I had just kind of been freelancing under my maiden name. And I'm not still currently teaching at the same college. So we moved when we spoke last time. I was living in Oregon still and teaching in Oregon. And then we moved to Billings, Montana in the end of 2019. I lived there for right at a year. And then my husband took another job here in Missouri. So we're now in Cape Girardeau, Southeast Missouri. And we just moved here like middle of May. So we've been here just a little under a month. And so, yeah, we're here now and we love it and semi settled. And I
Yeah,
don't have my office set up yet, but it's been a lot of transition, but really, really cool. So a lot going on in the last couple
yeah.
of years, but it's been fun. So
And then I, I'm just looking at from last time this, feeling like you're never fully ready to start. I feel like I remember that about our conversation that you graduated and kind of dove headlong into starting this business and feeling a little bit like maybe a fish out of water or what am I doing? Like, but having some success at that and just trusting God along the way. And so, talk a little bit about the teaching thing and how that came about and what you've learned taking that on.
teaching was never really something that was on my radar until kind of like towards the end of grad school. I just kind of had this thought of like, well, I've never really seen myself, like teaching or being a teacher, but I love design and I love um, talking about design and sharing what I know about design, and just for being able to relate to some of the instructors who were in the program that I was in grad school. Just being able to see myself doing that, I think was really what kind of opened my eyes to that. Um, and yeah, just trusting the God's leading me into design. So just jumping into my business full time and then um, really not feeling qualified to teach design, having literally just finished school, but at the same time, I just felt this really strong pull towards that. So I just decided to apply and see, if God opened that door. And that's just kind of the direction that He led me. And I really loved it. So I was designing and teaching at the same time, which was kind of an interesting dynamic, but I think it really made me a stronger designer myself. And I just really, really enjoyed working with college students who it was interesting because it was like a really broad range of ages in the classes that I taught. I had students who were like just out of high school and some students who were like my parents' age and, like all in one classroom, which was really, really cool. And just to be able to like share and impart what I've learned along the way through school as a designer, working with clients and things like that, in a college classroom setting and teaching like fundamental skill sets and things like that at the same time, was just really, really cool. And I enjoyed it a lot. Um, and yeah, I think the whole purpose of that season and teaching college classes, God just really used it to open my eyes to my heart for serving and helping and mentoring, like young creatives or people who are just getting started, down a creative path, whether they're designers or, they're just in some sort of creative professional capacity, but for just coming alongside them and sharing what I've learned and just mentoring and helping them and their journey, um, has just been really cool, and really rewarding. So I learned a lot from that season of teaching, and would definitely be open to getting back into teaching just because I loved it so much. But last year, I also took on a role as a community like mentor of sorts, community expert in an online design course, through the Bucket List Bombshells. And so I've been doing that for coming up on a year. This fall would be a year. And so I kind of get to put that teaching hat back on in that role. And I really enjoy that as well. And again, I just feel like that was something that God just kind of drew me into to kind of reinforce that desire in my heart to come alongside other creatives and help young aspiring creatives who are, just getting started and kind of figuring out um, design or, their creative path. And so I've really, really enjoyed that as well, along with doing, my design work and working with design clients. So,
Yeah, and I feel like just even as you're talking about that, it's such a affirmation of that thing you hear all the time in online business of like, oh, you just have to be a few steps ahead. Like you don't have to be, you know, 20 years experience to teach somebody, just a few steps ahead. And um, it's super reassuring that, as we gain life experience and work experience and dealing with, clients or, like you said, mentoring, that there's so much wisdom we have to impart. But sometimes we let our insecurities or that lie that, oh, I'm not far enough along to teach anybody anything. And then everybody kind of misses out if we give in to that. So, what a great example. I love that you said teaching kind of grew you as a designer as well.
yeah, it definitely did.
Yeah. So, is there like a
Mhm.
specific example that you can think of that, like, living this out, on a day to day, week to week basis, working with students, where it like impacted something specifically and something you were working with a client or a project that you had on your plate? I didn't prep you for that. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I think it's a great question. I think it's just like I'm a firm believer that like we can learn something from everyone, like no matter what like stage or whatever they are in life, if they're younger than us, older than us. I just think that everyone has, a valuable perspective to offer to everything. And so I was just always inspired by my students and their creativity and their ideas and the way that I think something that was really enlightening to me was, I create assignments and projects and it's the same requirements, the same parameters, the same, ultimate like outcome that they're trying to create, for, a project or assignment. And like every single student would take those same instructions and create something different from their perspective. And so I think it was just really cool to see that play out, in a classroom of, like 30 students, take the same thing and just bring their unique perspective to it and their creativity to it and create something completely unique. And so I was just always inspired by that. And I think, just being in a creative environment and creating, um, you know, with a sense of community around you, which is something that I'm learning a lot about recently. That I feel like God has been teaching me a lot about that through scripture. But um, it was just inspiring to always see their creativity. And I think it helped push me and my creative boundaries, and helped, broaden my perspective and expand my creativity too, to see them kind of, working in their own gifts and using, their creativity to approach, creative problem solving and design. And so, yeah, I always love that aspect of teaching.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that you brought that up about everyone getting the same assignment and producing something completely unique. Like, well, of course, but you would
Yeah.
not have known that had you not experienced it. So that's really cool. You did just mention that you've learned a lot about creating with a sense of community through scripture. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I feel like I've just kind of been on this unique journey, I think, really since January 1st of 2020, because I was starting just like a read through the Bible in a year type plan, and opened up to Genesis 1, January 1, not really thinking anything of it. But I think it's just like ever since that day, God just kind of revealed um, like just new things that I haven't really seen in that light before in regards to creativity, like his creative process through like the creation story in Genesis, and just seeing, a blueprint in that. And that, like I think that we are meant to emulate if we're created in his image. And so it's just been really cool. And another thing that I just feel like he's been showing me more recently, is that I think that we're not meant to create in isolation. Because I think if we're created in God's image, right, and we're meant to be a reflection of his image, and if God is, three persons in one, like he in and of himself is community. And I think he models that for us. We're created for community. Like we talk about that in church and everything. We're not meant to go through life alone, but I also think that we're not meant to create in isolation. I think we do our best creative work in community, and when we have a sense of community to kind of rely upon. And so I think that's really hit home, especially in the last year or so. I mean, I have always worked from home, but I think it's just been emphasized in the last, year with 2020, and just kind of being more confined to home and felt more isolated. And I have felt at times that my creativity has kind of been stifled. And so it's just emphasized the importance of like community, especially when you're creating. And I just have seen like the importance and the value of that. And so I just think that, we're really truly created to create in community. And I think we do our best creative work in community. And so that's just something that like God has kind of been revealing to me and showing me like just different sides of creativity and what that looks like, and how he modeled that for us, and how we're supposed to kind of emulate that, and how we exercise our creativity in whatever it is that we do. For me, it's design. But I think that, everyone's expression and of creativity, and I think creativity kind of manifests differently through everyone, just because we're all unique. And so we have, just different expressions of creativity that I think is innately just a part of who we are. Um, Being created in God's image, he's creative. So I think that, we're all creative in our own ways. But just the importance again of like creating and practicing creativity in community, I think is so important.
Yeah. And so how have you been able to do that even now?
Well, one, for me, it's like I have creative friends and like designer friends who I'm constantly, like in communication with, and sharing ideas with. And I think that has been so helpful for me personally, especially through like 2020 and not being able to travel or go to conferences. And that is one of the things that I love about being able to go to like creative conferences and things like that, is like you get that sense of community. And I think that's like a big part of why we get so much inspiration from things like creative conferences, is like you're creating and being creative in a sense of community. And so, but yeah, I think just like staying connected with my creative friends and designer friends. Ellie's running by. But and then also just being involved in creative communities like, Facebook groups and things like that. Or, I mentioned the role that I have with Bucket List Bombshells, and just even being inspired by the students in that community as well. And just staying connected to creative communities, I think, is really important. And so I guess kind of on that note, I had mentioned before, but that was one kind of the heart behind and the biggest reason and motivation why I started a Facebook group myself for other creatives, called Creative and Community. And that was like the whole just inspiration. Like, I feel like God has been teaching me so much about that. And I just kind of felt led to create a sense of community around that, and a safe space where other creatives could like share ideas or ask for help or get feedback, and just get input, on maybe something they're working on, or they feel stuck, or they need, just to ask a question, that they might not have, a creative friend to text or to call, if they need help with something. And so just creating a space for that, to hold space for that for other creatives, I think, which it's just been really exciting to see that kind of grow and flourish. So
Yeah, that's really cool. So I'm trying to imagine what that would look like for people that don't have such like a tangible thing to share and get feedback on. But maybe it's just the sense of, I have people that are like-minded, that we can connect on whatever it is, and we don't feel so alone doing our thing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think creativity, like, it doesn't always look like design or art. Like, creativity can be, anything. If you have an idea for something, I don't think we're meant to like process through that alone and just like create in a vacuum, or, try to, bring an idea to life by ourselves. Like, I think we're meant to bring other people into that. And I think it makes us better, and it makes whatever we're creating better, as the result.
Totally agree. Absolutely. I think we miss out on a lot if we don't involve others in it. Tell us again the name of your Facebook group in case there's anybody listening who would be interested in that.
Yeah, it's Creative in Community.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes too. I'm sure I can find it. So before we go, will you just give us like one piece of advice for the dreamer out there who may be earlier on in her process than you are? Maybe it's somebody who wants to start a business or wants to lead a community like you do. What would you say to her about either getting started or keeping going when it gets hard?
I think it's interesting that you asked that, because I think the last time that we talked, it was really focused around like never really feeling like you're ready to start, but just starting anyways. And I think on the note of what we were just talking about, like, don't be afraid to try to start something new or try something new, because you might not feel ready or qualified or prepared for that. But like, if you feel that nudge from God, you feel drawn to something, you're maybe not even sure why. Like, that's how I felt about teaching. I never really saw myself in that role. But I think, God knew. I think kind of on that note of what we were talking about before of, like trying something new or doing something different. I think we can, when we're in that place of like feeling drawn to something new or something different, maybe that we've never done before, I think it's just natural to feel, like you're not ready or you're unqualified. But I would just encourage you to start, or to, just to trust that nudge, as God pulling you in a different direction, maybe, to trust that and just take a step out. And just for me, it was kind of like with teaching, it was like, okay, well, I'm just going to apply. And if God opens that door, that I'm going to trust that. And so I think it's just like sometimes it's just a matter of like taking that first step, and allowing God to open that door to something new. And I had shared with you one of my favorite quotes that I really leaned on, during that season of when I was, like kind of like wrestling with, pursuing teaching, because it felt so new and different. And I did not feel qualified at all, to be in a position of being a college instructor of graphic design, having just finished my degree. And so but I felt like this undeniable like pull to it. So I applied, and, God opened that door. But one of the quotes that I really, really leaned on during that time, was from a book that I read by Marshawn Evans Daniels, called Believe Bigger. And it was just really timely. She said, there are many things that you have learned to do well, but there are other things that you've never done that you can do even better. And so for me, that was just like, okay, I felt very clearly drawn to teaching, even though I felt completely unqualified. I just trusted, that nudge from God. And I think a lot of times it can just look like taking that first step into something new that you feel drawn to, and allowing God, to use your obedience to open that door. And so I would just encourage anyone listening who might feel like they're kind of in that place of maybe feeling drawn towards something new or something that they've never done before, to not let that fear or, that perfectionism kind of tendency to feel ready or feel like you have it all together, hold you back from doing something that you could be great at, just because maybe you're not willing to feel uncomfortable, or you're just scared to try to take that first step into that.
If, while listening to this episode, you thought that maybe it is finally time to pursue your own God-shaped dream, and if a little structure and personalized support would be helpful to you in that endeavor, let's chat about dream coaching. You can join me for a free 30-minute discovery call so we can connect one-on-one and see if we'd be a good fit to work together. Sign up at bit.ly/dreamercall.